In the time that's passed, has anything changed or developed? You've emphasized deregulation, as have many other Trump surrogates and Trump himself. Is that the totality of why you think former President Trump, is best for the technology industry?
So deregulation is an important part of the story. The regulations that are promulgated by the administrative state, the unelected administrative state, is certainly a problem. But, more globally, the reason that I support President Trump and J.D. Vance is because they are going to implement they're not going to just roll back regulations that are stifling American industry, but they're actually going to actively implement policies that will stimulate growth and encourage innovation, encourage American ingenuity, which is absolutely essential to usher in a boom in American industrial manufacturing. And this is an issue not only of American prosperity, but also of national security. It's something that people like myself who invest in the national security space spend a lot of time thinking about, because the policies of the current administration, which have led to the continued offshoring of critical components of American manufacturing, of the American defense industry, as well as our disastrous energy policies, they have made the United States less prosperous and less safe. And that goes beyond just regulation.
Well, some might say, on the other hand, you have the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act that has legislated to ensure those two specific industries. Companies like Anduril have thrived in the last 4 years.
I would argue that Anduril has thrived despite the last 4 years. I mean, what do you need for a healthy manufacturing base? You need cheap, abundant energy. You need low inflation, you need low interest rates, and the current administration gets a C- on all of this. So yes, tech founders will find a way, despite the policies of the current administration, not because of them. You can't legislate growth. You can legislate policies, and I'll give an example. So for example, one of the critical inputs for manufacturing is energy. Nuclear is the cheapest, safest, most energy-dense form of baseload power that we have here in the United States. And yet, the Harris-Biden administration has blocked the development of 1 million acres on the Arizona-Utah border, which is the sole source of U.S.-based high-grade uranium. And so rather than shore up this absolutely critical domestic source, what are we doing? We are the largest buyer of Russian enriched uranium. I mean, this is just bananas, that not only have we made ourselves reliant on a foreign adversary for American baseload power, but we're also literally funding the Russian nuclear weapons complex because why? Because of a policy decision, because the Harris-Biden administration, that White House decided to bow to the very well-funded lobbying of a particular interest group in the United States, and they chose that interest group above the national security interests of the United States and our allies. Crystal, that is one example. That's not regulation, that's a policy.
Now, I don't know the nuances of exactly that particular investment in nuclear. However, I'm pretty sure there are limitations on imports from Russia. And I'm also certain that we've seen deals from Microsoft, from Google, announcements from Amazon saying that they will invest in nuclear energy, and that happens under this current administration, not a future potential Trump one. And so I'm interested more broadly about what you're trying to articulate when it comes to actual policies that you think will be brought in that bring the innovation you talk to.
Absolutely, and that is it's a great development that there is an understanding that nuclear is 100% the answer, not only for United States manufacturing, but also, frankly, how are we going to keep up with the energy requirements of AI, which is a good thing, and how are we also going to respond to the concerns about climate change? How are we going to mitigate climate change? Nuclear is an essential part of that. And one thing I should mention is that 6 members of Congress, I mean, to your point, we should not be enriching the Russian state. And 6 Republican members of Congress earlier this year passed a bill to limit. I don't
think Carrie's point was that we're enriching the Russian state. I think her question was,
sure,
Russia is subject to both export and import controls.
It is. It should be. And so 6 members of Congress passed a bill earlier this year to limit our import of uranium because we shouldn't be buying it from Russia under any rationale point of view. And yet, what does this bill do? The bill that the White House signed includes an enormous waiver that mandates that essentially mandates the continued purchase of uranium from Russia through 2028. So I agree, we should not be buying uranium from Russia. We should not be dependent on a critical input for energy in the United States from Russia, and yet we are.
Crystal,
and that is a direct result of the Biden-Harris administration's policies.
I spoke with the Energy Secretary a month or so ago, and she was very much focused on bringing nuclear energy back to power data centers back here in the United States. I just want to go to perhaps some of the level of tension and indeed ongoing relationships with people when it comes to November 6th, 7th, 8th, no matter what the outcome is. We had Reid Hoffman on, of course, a key venture capitalist, a founder, but also someone who supports the Harris campaign. Now, he articulated his worry that there might be some sort of form of retribution. Can you just take a listen?
Trump in Trump presidency 1, his early presidency has shown a certain amount of grifter capitalism. It's like trying to penalize his opponents using the instruments of state.
We have but 30 seconds, but do you worry about penalization no matter what happens on the other side?
I don't think so, no. I am a patriot. I am an American through and through. First of all, I don't think that it's notable that he could not point to a single example of retribution by Donald Trump. The current administration, we have seen a tremendous uptick in prosecutions of people who are associated with the Trump administration. So perhaps that there is some concern if the Democrats come back in office, but I'm optimistic enough to think that I don't think that the Democrats are going to retaliate against people who voted their conscience and who spoke their conscience and who spoke out against the policies that we believe are crushing American industry.